That necklace. Where did you get it? The old woman's voice, usually a boardroom weapon, cracked like thin ice. Not a polite inquiry, more a raw demand that scared the waitress, Amelia. See, what that titan of industry didn't know, what nobody knew, was that locket was more than cheap silver. It was a map leading straight to 30 years of lies. Amelia, bless her, just thought it was a family heirloom. Her mother's. A mother who never spoke of the past. The rich lady, though, Elelanina. She knew. That little star held a secret, a daughter, a betrayal. And Amelia? She had no clue she was about to inherit a war. They have no idea how her quiet kindness will change everything. That necklace! Where did you get it? The old woman's voice, usually a boardroom weapon, cracked like thin ice. Not a polite inquiry, more a raw demand that scared the waitress, Amelia. See, what that titan of industry didn't know, what nobody knew, was that locket was more than cheap silver. It was a map leading straight to 30 years of lies. Amelia, bless her, just thought it was a family heirloom. Her mother's. A mother who never spoke of the past. The rich lady, though, Elelanina. She knew. That little star held a secret, a daughter, a betrayal. And Amelia? She had no clue she was about to inherit a war. They have no idea how her quiet kindness will change everything. The grandeur of Vance Global meant nothing to Elelanina Vance in that moment. Forget the billions, the power that bent politicians to her will, the sterile perfection she curated with an iron fist. In that greasy spoon diner, the bistro, all that dissolved away, leaving a raw, vulnerable woman staring at a tarnished silver necklace. A necklace worn by Amelia, a waitress barely scraping by. Elelanina, 82 and a force of nature in the corporate world, clung to routine. 3 times a month, she abandoned her chauffeured limousine for a discreet black town car, ordering the driver to take her to this forgotten corner of the city. This pilgrimage wasn't about the food. It was a desperate grasp at the past, a whispered conversation with a ghost. The bistro was where she and her late husband, Richard, had shared their first real date. A far cry from the Vance Global headquarters, it was then a struggling diner, echoing with the dreams of 2 young, ambitious souls. Now Richard was 10 years gone, and their shared dream was a sprawling, multi-billion-dollar reality she sometimes wished she could escape. Settling into her usual corner booth, the weight of Elelanina's vast empire momentarily lifted, replaced by a sharper, more painful burden: grief. She swirled the ice in her water glass, the clinking a somber counterpoint to the diner's background hum. Richard's infectious laughter echoed in her memory, the playful glint in his eye as he'd sneak a fry from her plate. She longed for those simpler days. "More water, ma'am." Elelanina blinked, dragged back to the present. A young woman stood beside her table, a fresh carafe in hand. Amelia. Her face was etched with a gentle weariness, her brown hair pulled back in a ponytail that fought a losing battle against stray strands. The uniform, though clean, spoke of countless shifts, of a life lived on the margins. Elelanina recognized the fatigue that clung to those who toiled for survival, not legacy. "Yes, thank you," Elelanina murmured, her voice a surprising softness compared to the steel her board members knew so well. As Amelia leaned forward to refill her glass, a subtle movement caught Elelanina's eye. A flicker of silver nestled against the worn fabric of Amelia's uniform. A necklace, long and delicate. A unique charm. A star, a 5-pointed Polaris, shaped like a locket. Elelanina's breath hitched. Her hand, glittering with a diamond ring the size of a robin's egg, flew to her own bare throat. Impossible. It couldn't be. There was only one in existence. Richard had designed it, commissioned a renowned silversmith in Italy to craft it for their 10th anniversary. An exquisite, personalized masterpiece, representing his eternal guiding star. He called her his Polaris, the necklace. Elelanina's voice was a raw, rasping whisper, the air thick with disbelief. The diner's sounds seemed to fade, the clatter of silverware, the murmur of conversations all dissolving into a muted hum. Amelia straightened, a flicker of polite confusion on her face. She instinctively touched the star locket. "Oh, this. I'm sorry. Is it unprofessional? I can tuck it in." "No," Elena managed, her voice cracking. Her eyes, usually sharp and analytical, swirled with a tempest of conflicting emotions. She leaned forward, fixated on the jewelry. She could discern the faint, familiar scratches on its surface, the slight thinning of the chain near the clasp. It was undoubtedly, impossibly, she had to know, had no criminal history. She was, by all accounts, a decent person. But Sterling was paid to find something, and if he couldn't find it, he was adept at creating it. He discovered that 2 years prior, Amelia had been in a minor car accident. The other driver, a man named Marcus Thorne, had been aggressive and claimed she was at fault. The insurance handled it, but not before Thorne had made a scene. Sterling saw an opening. He contacted Marcus Thorne, a man with a gambling problem and a perpetually empty wallet. For a few thousand in cash, Thorne was more than happy to change his story. He would now claim that Amelia had tried to bribe him at the scene, offering him cash to not call the police because she'd been drinking. It was a lie, but it was a believable one. Beatrice was delighted. It wasn't a felony, but it was enough. It painted a picture of a deceitful, manipulative person. It was a seed of doubt they could plant in Elena's mind at the perfect moment. Meanwhile, Amelia remained oblivious to the plot against her. Her biggest struggle was with her own identity. One day she was a waitress, the next the potential heirs to a billion-dollar fortune. The whiplash was severe. One afternoon, Mr. Abnethy, the family lawyer, a kind elderly man with gentle eyes, requested a meeting with her. "Mrs. Vance has instructed me to begin the process of recognizing you as her legal heir, pending the DNA results," he explained calmly. "This involves setting up trusts, understanding tax implications. It's a significant undertaking." Amelia felt a wave of nausea. Trusts, taxes. "Mr. Abernathy, I still don't know how to use the coffee machine in the kitchen. It all feels wrong, like I'm an imposter." "You are not an imposter, my dear," he said gently. "You are family. But be warned, with a family like the Vances, that title comes with as much conflict as it does comfort. Julian and Beatrice will not accept you easily." His words were prophetic. Later that day, Amelia was in the garden watching Leo play when Beatrice approached her. A false, sweet smile plastered on her face. "Enjoying the grounds?" Beatrice asked, her tone dripping with condescension. "You and your son have certainly made yourselves at home." "Leo loves it here," Amelia replied politely, refusing to be baited. "I'm sure he does," Beatrice purred. "Children love shiny things, and you, Amelia, seem to have found the shiniest toy of all." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "A word of advice. Take a settlement. Elena will give you a few million to disappear. It would be enough to set you and your boy up for life. Take the money and run. Because if you stay, if you try to take what belongs to my husband, I will make your life a living hell. I will dig up every mistake you've ever made and broadcast it to the world. You won't just lose the inheritance, you'll lose your dignity too." The threat was undisguised a declaration of war. Amelia stared at her, horrified but resolute. "This isn't about the money for me. It's about my grandmother." Beatrice laughed a sharp, ugly sound. "Oh, you poor, naive girl. You have no idea what you're up against." She turned and walked away, leaving Amelia standing in the beautiful sunlit garden, a cold dread seeping into her heart. The wait for the DNA results was now a ticking time bomb. The day the DNA results were due to arrive, the atmosphere in the Vance mansion was electric with tension. It felt less like a family home and more like the headquarters of two opposing armies waiting for a critical dispatch from the front line. Eleanor had requested everyone gather in the library, the same room where the drama had begun. She sat in her large armchair by the fireplace, Amelia and a quiet, nervous Leo on a sofa nearby. Julian and Beatrice took seats on the opposite side of the room, their posture rigid, their faces grim. Mr. Abernathy arrived precisely at 3:00 p.m. He was a man accustomed to high-stakes situations, but even he seemed to feel the oppressive weight in the room. He carried a single sealed manila envelope. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice a calm anchor in the stormy silence. I have the results from the lab. All eyes locked on the envelope. It contained more than just a scientific finding. It held the future of the Vance dynasty. Julian leaned forward, his knuckles white as he gripped the arms of his chair. Beatrix's painted smile was tight, her eyes like chips of ice. Amelia held Leo's small hand, her own palm sweating. Mr. Abernathy carefully broke the seal and pulled out a single sheet of paper. He scanned it, his expression unreadable. After a moment that stretched for an eternity, he looked up, his gaze settling on Elena. The analysis compared the DNA sample provided by Miss Amelia Reed with a sample from yourself, Elena, he announced formally. The results are conclusive. He paused for dramatic effect. The probability of grand maternity is 99%. Amelia Reed is without any scientific doubt the daughter of the late Isabella Vance Reed and your granddaughter. A collective gasp went through the room. Elena closed her eyes and a single tear of pure relief rolled down her cheek. She reached a hand out to Amelia, her smile radiant. I knew it, she whispered. I knew it in my soul. Amelia felt a wave of vindication wash over her. She squeezed Leo's hand and smiled back at her grandmother, a genuine, happy smile. It was real. It was all real. Julian slumped back in his chair as if he'd been punched, a look of pure fury on his face. This was his worst-case scenario. But Beatrice was not defeated. She was prepared. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Well, Beatrice said, her voice cutting through the emotional moment like a shard of glass. That's settled. Then she stood up a folder in her hand that Amelia hadn't noticed before. While we were all waiting for this oh-so-touching reunion to be confirmed, Julian and I thought it prudent to do our own due diligence to understand exactly who we are welcoming into this family. Eleanor's smile faded. Beatrice, what is the meaning of this? This is a moment for celebration. Is it? Beatrice replied, her voice saccharine. Or is it a moment to face the truth? You see, Elena, you may have found your blood, but you have no idea who this woman really is. She opened the folder. We hired a private investigator, Robert Sterling. Very thorough. She pulled out a document and began to read. Let's see. Amelia Reed, a string of low-paying jobs, constantly behind on rent. But this is the interesting part. 2 years ago, on May 14th, a traffic accident on a Brooklyn street. The other driver, a Mr. Marcus Thorne. Amelia's blood ran cold. She remembered the incident, the belligerent man who had yelled at her. According to Mr. Thorne's sworn affidavit, Beatrice continued, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Ms. Reed was erratic and smelled of alcohol. When he threatened to call the police, she offered him $500 in cash to forget the whole thing, an attempt to bribe a man to cover up a DUI. How resourceful. The accusation was a bombshell. It was a complete and utter lie, but it was presented with such authority, a sworn affidavit, that it sounded damning. That's not true, Amelia cried out, jumping to her feet. He's lying. The man was a maniac. He screamed at me, but I was not drinking. I never offered him money. Of course you'd say that, Julian chimed in, rising to stand with his wife. You're a born liar. Your whole life has been a struggle, scourging for money. The opportunity arises. You try to lie and cheat your way out of trouble. It's in your character. Elena looked from Julian and Beatrix's smug faces to Amelia's panicked one. A flicker of doubt, a tiny poisonous seed was planted. She had been so blinded by hope, so desperate to believe in this fairy tale. Had she been naive, she thought of her own world, a world of contracts, betrayals, and ruthless ambition. People lied for far less than $1 billion inheritance. Amelia, is there any truth to this? Elena asked, her voice faltering. The question itself was a betrayal, and it shattered Amelia's heart. Tears sprang into Amelia's eyes. Tears of hurt and fury. After everything, after the DNA test, after opening her life to this family, to have her grandmother, the one person she was beginning to trust, look at her with suspicion. It was too much. You believe them? She whispered, her voice choked with emotion. She looked at Elena's conflicted face and saw that the seed of doubt was already taking root. The joy of the moment was gone, poisoned by a calculated lie. Beatrice had won this round. She had successfully turned a moment of reunion into one of accusation and mistrust. Amelia shook her head, a profound sense of despair washing over her. "I can't do this," she said, her voice barely audible. She took Leo's hand, pulling him close. "I don't want your money. I don't want any of this." She turned and fled the library, leaving behind a stunned silence, a triumphant Beatrice, and a heartbroken old woman whose greatest hope had just been corrupted by a venomous lie. Amelia's retreat back to the guest suite was a flurry of tearful, desperate packing. She threw her and Leo's meager belongings into their old, worn duffel bags. The luxurious room, which had once felt like a dream, now felt like a prison of judgment and suspicion. Leo, confused and scared by his mother's tears, just hugged his new teddy bear, a gift from Elena, and watched in silence. "We're going home, sweetie," Amelia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Back to our real home." Her resolve was absolute. She could endure poverty. She could endure hardship. But she would not endure being called a liar and a cheat. She would not subject her son to a family that would use him as a pawn in their cruel games. The brief moment of doubt in Elena's eyes had severed the fragile bond between them more effectively than any lie. Downstairs, the library was a war zone of words. "How could you?" Eleanor raged at Julian and Beatrice, her own heartbreak now solidifying into fury. "You took a moment of pure joy, and you deliberately, maliciously destroyed it. We revealed the truth." Julian shot back, his voice rising to match hers. "We are trying to protect you. This woman is a grifter. Her character is flawed. Can you imagine the scandal when the tabloids get a hold of this billionaire's heir in DUI bribery scandal? It would tarnish the Vance name forever." "A name you seem to care about more than your own family," Elena retorted. "More than your long-lost niece? More than my happiness. My primary duty is to this company, this legacy," Julian thundered. "Something you taught me. You can't let sentimentality cloud your judgment and put everything Richard and you built at risk for some waitress." Their argument was interrupted by a soft knock on the library door. It was Charles the butler. His face was grave. "Mrs. Vance, I apologize for the intrusion," he said. "Ms. Reed has packed her bags. She is waiting for a taxi by the front gate." Elena's heart plummeted. She was leaving. The realization struck her with the force of a physical blow. She was about to lose her family all over again, this time because of her own hesitation, her own son's cruelty. She had to stop her. As Eleanor rushed from the room, Amelia was in her suite doing one last sweep. She opened a closet to make sure she hadn't left anything. Tucked away on the top shelf was a battered cardboard box she had brought from her apartment, the one containing her mother's few possessions. She hadn't had the heart to look through it since moving in. Now something compelled her to open it. Inside were old sketchbooks, dried paintbrushes, and a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. They were addressed in her mother's elegant script to Mrs. Elena, Vance Estate, New York. They had never been sent. The postmarks were all from 30 years ago. With trembling hands, Amelia untied the ribbon and began to read to the first one. "Dearest Mother, I hope this letter finds you. I've tried calling, but no one ever puts me through. I am so sorry for the things I said. I was angry and hurt, but I never stopped loving you. Daniel and I are struggling, but we are happy. I wish you could see that. I wish you could meet him. He is kind and good. Please, Mother, just talk to me." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. Her mother had tried to reconcile. She read another letter dated a few months later. "Mother, something wonderful has happened. I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother. I know you must be angry with me, but I hope the news of a grandchild will soften your heart. I want my child to know you and to know Father. Daniel is so excited. We want to come home. I've left a dozen messages with Julian's assistant. Has he not passed them on? Please call me at this number." A cold dread washed over Amelia as she read the line again. "I've left a dozen messages with Julian's assistant." She frantically tore through the other letters. They told a story of increasing desperation. Letters about Daniel getting sick with a fast-acting cancer. Letters begging for help, not for herself, but for him. And then the final heart-wrenching letter. Mother Daniel is gone. He died this morning. I am alone and I am 7 months pregnant. I have nothing. I called the main house again today, desperate to speak to you. Julian answered. He told me you wanted nothing to do with me. He said you told him that my choices had consequences and that I was to never contact the family again. He said you had disowned me. My heart is broken, Mother, not just for losing Daniel, but for losing you too. I won't bother you again. I will raise this baby on my own. Goodbye. Your daughter, Isabella. The letter fell from Amelia's numb fingers. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. It wasn't just a fight. It was a deliberate, calculated act of sabotage. Julian had intercepted the calls. He had lied to Isabella, telling her she was disowned. He had lied to his parents, letting them believe their daughter had simply vanished without a trace. He had single-handedly destroyed his own family to secure his position as the sole heir. At that moment, Elena burst into the room, her face etched with panic. Amelia, please don't go. We can sort this out. I was wrong to doubt you. Please. Her words died in her throat as she saw the letters scattered on the floor and the look of cold, devastating realization on Amelia's face. Amelia simply picked up the last letter and handed it to her grandmother. Eleanor's hands shook as she read her dead daughter's final words. She read about the calls about the pregnancy, about Daniel's death, but it was the part about Julian that made her world collapse. The lie. The cruel, unforgivable lie. The son she had raised, the man she had made CEO of her company, had not only allowed his sister to suffer and die alone, but had orchestrated it. He had let his parents grieve for 30 years over a loss he himself had engineered. A low, guttural sound of pure agony escaped Elena's lips. It was the sound of a mother's heart breaking for the second and final time. She looked up from the letter, her eyes no longer filled with tears, but with a fire of incandescent rage. She turned and marched out of the room, the letter clutched in her hand like a weapon. Amelia followed, knowing this was no longer about her. This was about a 30-year-old crime that was about to be brought into the light. They found Julian and Beatrice in the main hall, smugly waiting for the problem to leave. Elena strode right up to her son and without a word slapped him across the face. The sound echoed through the cavernous space. You! She hissed, her voice trembling with a rage so profound it was almost silent. She held up the letter. You did this. You let her die alone. You let us think she was gone. You killed your own sister. Julian's face went white as he saw the letter. The mask of control shattered, replaced by pure cornered panic. Mother, it wasn't like that. I was trying to protect you from her, from them. Protect me. Elena's voice rose to a terrifying roar. You destroyed us. For money. For power. You are not my son. You are a monster. The truth was out. Ugly, brutal, and undeniable. The foundation of the Vance family had cracked open, revealing the rot and betrayal that lay at its core. The aftermath of the revelation was swift and brutal. In the cold light of his treachery, Julian Vance withered. His denials were weak, his excuses pathetic. Beatrice, seeing her entire world of wealth and status evaporating before her eyes, tried to distance herself, claiming she knew nothing of Julian's decades-old secret. But Elena was finished with them both. Get out, Eleanor commanded, her voice devoid of all emotion, save for a chilling finality. Get out of my house. Mr. Abernathy will contact you tomorrow regarding your severance from the company and your disinheritance. You will receive nothing. You are no longer a part of this family. Julian and Beatrice stood there, stripped of their power, their future annihilated by a bundle of old letters. They left the mansion that day with nothing but their expensive clothes and the public disgrace that was sure to follow. The Vance empire had a new direction, and they were not a part of it. In the quiet that followed their departure, Elena turned to Amelia. The old woman looked fragile, aged by the terrible truth. Yet there was a new clarity in her eyes. She walked over to Amelia and took both of her hands. I am so sorry, Elena said, her voice thick with unshed tears. I failed your mother, and I failed you by doubting you. Can you ever forgive me? Amelia looked at the broken woman before her, the woman who was her grandmother, and saw not a billionaire or a matriarch, but just a mother who had lost her child. All the anger and hurt she had felt melted away, replaced by a deep shared sorrow. "There is nothing to forgive," Amelia whispered, squeezing her hands. "You didn't know. We were both lied to." That moment marked the true beginning of their family. The weeks that followed were not about lawyers and trust funds, though Mr. Abernathy handled all of that quietly in the background, officially installing Amelia as the primary heir to the Vance fortune. Instead, they were about healing. Eleanor, Amelia, and Leo became a small, tight-knit unit. They spent their days not in boardrooms, but in the gardens. Eleanor taught Leo how to play chess the same way she had taught Isabella. Amelia, discovering her mother's old art supplies, started sketching again, a talent she never knew she had. She drew pictures of Leo chasing butterflies of Charles the butler, secretly smiling of Eleanor, asleep in her armchair, a look of peace finally on her face. One evening, Eleanor found Amelia sitting by the fireplace, the Polaris locket in her hands. "Your mother was supposed to give that back to me on her wedding day," Eleanor said softly. "It was a tradition I wanted to start. The matriarch passes it to her daughter, who passes it to hers. It's a symbol of our guiding star, the love that leads us home." She gently took the locket from Amelia's hand. "It was mine. Then it was Isabella's. Now, Amelia, it is yours." She carefully fastened the silver chain around Amelia's neck. "Wear it not as a memory of what we lost, but as a promise of what we have found." Amelia touched the star, its cool metal, a comfort against her skin. It was no longer just a piece of jewelry. It was her history, her future, her connection to a line of strong women she was now proud to be a part of. The mansion, once a cold and intimidating palace, slowly became a home filled with laughter. Leo's shrieks of joy echoing in the halls, Amelia's quiet chuckles, and Eleanor's warm, contented sighs. The ghosts of the past had not vanished, but they no longer haunted the rooms. Instead, they were cherished memories integrated into the fabric of a new, stronger family. Eleanor Vance, the billionaire who had everything, had finally found the one thing she truly needed, the unconditional love of her family. And Amelia Reed, the waitress who had nothing, discovered that her greatest inheritance wasn't the money, but the grandmother who had been waiting for her all along, guided home by the light of a silver star. In the end, this wasn't a story about a lost fortune being found, but about a lost family being reunited. It's a powerful reminder that the most valuable treasures we possess are not kept in vaults but in our hearts. The story of Eleanor, Amelia, and Leo teaches us about the devastating power of secrets, the corrosive nature of greed, and the incredible healing power of forgiveness and second chances. It proves that it's never too late to right a wrong, and that the bonds of family, though they may be stretched and tested, can ultimately endure even the deepest betrayals. If this story touched your heart, please let us know in the comments below. What would you have done in Eleanor's position? Have you ever witnessed a moment that changed someone's life forever? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want more incredible true life stories that will inspire and move you, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching.